So everyone, welcome to the Wood Vault. We have an extraordinary selection of wood in this room. It's originally conceived of as a library. And with me is Michael Reed. Michael Reed and I have been friends for how long, Michael? 25 years, 30 years?
30 years.
30 years. And Michael is the head of our wood buying team for PRS. And we've got a whole bunch of woods here in the room on the table. But really, I wanted to start, Michael. Do you remember how we met? Do you remember the whole story?
Yeah, there's a few times in your life when you say, well, I remember where I was when Kennedy was shot, when Martin Luther King was shot.
Oh, really? Is this going to be equivalent to when Kennedy was shot?
No, I mean, I remember because it was a little overwhelming. I was, a cabinet maker who never saw anybody. I was in my shop every day by myself. And anyway, Paul called me. I was building period furniture out of Tiger Maple. He was building guitars. We didn't know each other, but we bought wood from a common vendor, and Paul had gotten a commission for a guitar, someone named Carlos Santana, and he didn't have the maple. So he asked the guy, does he know any maple dealers, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I had some wood. He called me, came to the shop, opened up his scrapbook, which wasn't very large at the time, certainly not as large as it is now, and sold him some wood. He left, and my wife said, who was that? I said, well, he's a guitar maker. So,
what I remember that is I told you who the order was for, and you looked at me like, yeah, right. And I said, well, here, look, let me show you the proof. And I started to go through the pages.
I remember that, yeah.
Pages in the scrapbook, and you said, okay, well, that's true. And he took me up to this loft of curly maple that was extraordinary, and everything that I needed to build that guitar was there. I think he charged me, I don't know, 30 or 40 cents a board foot for it or something.
Oh, yeah, I got rich that day.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. So there was another day that I went up to Michael's house and I said, well, would you like to be the wood buyer?
Well, I need to give them a little background on that. So I was building furniture, and Paul kept calling me from about 1980 to 85. I need a piece of wood here, I need a piece of wood there, which was fine because I was getting enough. And then in 85, the factory started, and the calls got a little more frequent, and I had less and less wood. And then other people started calling me from PRS. I'm like, look, I need my wood. So he said, well, you need to come work for me.
Can I show them a couple pieces of the kind of maple? There's one here, Michael. So what exactly is this?
Well, this is, I don't know, I would call it sort of a mainstay of private stock. This is red maple, grows in the eastern U.S. I have a couple of suppliers. And this is what I was using for furniture and cutting for years. And this is the wood that in the 18th century in the U.S. was traditionally used for period furniture. Paul's very first guitar was actually a piece of red maple that came from a drawer front on an old Empire chest of drawers. And this tree, a certain percentage of the time, probably no more than 2 or 3% gets figured, and out of that, what we use is probably 1/2 of 1%, and we're very fortunate in that we have access to this on a pretty regular basis. It's pretty rare, but we have people that are looking for it all the time. So, and it's a wonderful sounding wood. I'm not really sure what else I can tell you about it.
What is this wood, Michael?
This is big leaf maple, quilted figure. And it grows in a pretty wide variety of figures. This is fairly typical. It can also be flame. It can also be a combination of the two. It grows in the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, Washington, British Columbia. And quilted maple is probably a lot harder to come by than the flame in big leaf maple. And it's localized when it grows. You don't find it everywhere. It's less common in BC than it is, say, in Washington, but
BC for British Columbia.
British Columbia, yeah.
What would this be, Michael?
This is actually something we got recently. It's very, very nice, very hard red maple, which we haven't used a lot of for neck blanks, but this is very hard. It's really straight grain and really nicely figured, really clean. And this was cut by one of our suppliers here in the East from log form.
And this is a piece of East Indian rosewood. And there's actually a very
I'd
rare...
like to tell them about the origin of rosewood neck blanks, if I could, because it's kind of an interesting story. It's probably been, I don't know, 15 years since we've been using rosewood neck blanks of different types of rosewoods. But the very first time I got some of this, probably in the early 90s, and I was at a maple dealer looking at some wood, and it was late at night, it was dark, and we were in, this is on a farm in Pennsylvania, and we went into a chicken coop because he said he had some nice planks in this chicken coop. Had no lights, and I stumbled over a piece of wood, and I kicked it, and it hit something, and I heard this ringing sound, and lit the flashlight on it, and he said, "Oh, that's a piece of rosewood." And he had 9 pieces about this size, and I said, "Well, I have to buy them," and he sold them, and I think it was probably Carlos that you made a guitar out of one of those pieces. Yeah.
This is a piece of Pernambuco. It's got a really nice tone to it as well. There's also, our wood buying team, along with Paul Platts, and he writes they get curly mahoganies. There's beautiful Coca-Cola sets for making acoustic guitars out of. There are different kinds of spruce tops. You've got extraordinary figures, other kinds of rosewoods here. Coca-Cola, East Indian rosewood, this is some blackwood. So, really this was the origins of private stock too, because you guys were able to get such good woods. I don't really know, Michael, but in your mind, exactly how do you think of the difference, to say, between a private stock top and a 10 top?
Well, I would say that's, when you're grading wood, and we have, the grading process that we use is, it has, I guess what I would say, a lot of checks and balances. When you look at a top, if you've graded enough of them, and the guys that are currently in place, like Rob Hewer, who's been in this position for 10 years, graded tens of thousands of tops, the instant you look at it, you know what it is. And if you have to pick it up, turn it over, look at it more than once, it's pretty much, then it's probably not going to be that upper grade, it's going to be the one below it. But with private stock, I don't know, it just has a quality, and it's probably the level of like iridescence and sharpness to the figure. There really isn't anywhere on the board that doesn't jump out at you. And that piece of quilt there is a really, really good example. I mean, it looks like it's got lightning running through it. That's a particularly nice piece there.
You know what I like? I like that your team of people consistently have been getting such extraordinary wood. I know it always seems like a miracle when we come across a tree, but there has been a consistency about finding the trees and being able to cut them up and get the right stuff here. It's really the blood of the company, the wood that we get. Right?
Yeah, and it's I think because of relationships. I mean, the guy we got this piece of wood from, we started buying wood from in 1987, and he's been solid ever since. And I don't know what we do without these guys, because they're as important to the business as anybody. I was just talking to a supplier in Oregon, and he was complaining about not being able to get wood, and he said he's not really a large vendor of ours, but he was saying, you guys probably get 90% of what comes out of the Northwest, and he travels quite a bit, as I do, and it's a difficult job, but it's the relationships with these vendors that really make it work over time, because it's not about, with them, it's not about the money. They really love what they do.